What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. My name is Soulblaze, and today I will be taking you through the new draft that I just got into, the UPA. It's my first Wi-Fi Gen 9 Ubers League. I played one Showdown Ubers. I played, it will be my first Wi-Fi Uber League ever, which is pretty exciting, but I've only done Showdown before. And it's going to be Gen 9 as well. I've never played, I have played Gen 9 Showdown Ubers. So it's going to be interesting. Hopefully, we can make it happen. If you're excited for the team, let me know down in the comments below as you go down there to like, comment, subscribe, and do all that fun stuff. Show the support. You know I appreciate it. You know I like to see it. So without any further ado, let's get into it. First Pokemon of the day. Boom. Deoxys Attack. This thing is weak to damage. Look at the stats. Look at the stats. That tells you everything you need to know. Offensive as it can. You don't get any more offensive than this. It does not get any more offensive than this. Blitzing speed, hard hitting damage. That's all you need. The only thing that I don't really like on this thing is the ability. I think it could have a better offensive ability. But you know, we make it do what it make it do. Compared to the other Deoxys forms, this is like a slightly slower Deoxys speed that already has a +1 boost in something. So, say you want to go for your physical moves, you can go for elemental punches, you can go for knockoff, you can go for superpower, you can go for extreme speed with really good priority, stuff like that. It's basically like your Deoxys speed, but you have a +1 in the stat you're using, which is pretty like you're slightly stronger than a Deoxys speed with no item at +1, which is pretty cool. It's like I already howled, like I already did something like one Calm Mind but no Spadef boost. It's crazy damage. I'm so excited to use it. It also has a really good special moveset in Psycho Boost, in Expanding Force, in Psyshock, Shadow Ball, Meteor Beam, Focus Blast. We're not going to click Focus Blast, never mind. Ice Beam. And then Substitute to set that up if it wants to do that. It also has some niche supportive options, being that it is really fast. It can abuse that speed and knock over damage and click other moves as well, but that would it would kind of be a waste of this Pokemon's potential. However, it will claim lives. It will claim lives. Coming in at the right opportune moment, playing it right, really have to be wary of what item you give this thing, because there's only certain items that work, because obviously this thing drops to you thinking about it dropping, so you want to be really strategic about how you use this Pokemon. But it will leave some marks after the battle is done. It will punch holes. It will leave holes in the wall. So excited to use it. Let's move on to the next member. It's our first Uber for 26 points. That means we have another Uber for 24. So I picked up this behemoth right here. Big guy, big boy. As you can see, Giratina Origin. Really excited to use them. As you can see, these two already share two weaknesses. They share a weakness in Ghost and a weakness in Dark. Luckily for me, Deoxys is pretty fast and has Shadow Ball and Dark Pulse, so no problem. And it also has Superpower for Dark types. This thing has, on the physical side, it has Shadow Sneak, so it has Stab, Greasiest Orb, boosted priority, which is really cool. It's tanky as all hell with the 150 base HP, so we're kind of, though offensive, going a completely separate direction than Deoxys Attack. So it is kind of two different philosophies in offense, and they don't really necessarily pair the best together typing wise, but offensive role wise they pair very well. One bulky attacker that can come in, tank hits, and threaten the one of the weaknesses that you got in common, and the other being able to outspeed and rely on fast hitting moves to take care of one or the other common weakness that you have, or just a singular other weakness like Ice or Fairy or Dragon that Giratina has. So Deoxys attacking can come in, be fast. Deoxys Giratina Origin can come in, tank a hit, and then kill something in return. Or it also has the potential as Deoxys does, which is pretty cool in that it can go special or physical. On the special side, we got the Greasiest Orb boosted Draco coming off a 120 stab. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. Trust me, it's gonna hurt. On the physical side, we got a 110 stab Greasiest Orb boosted Poltergeist, which is also gonna hurt. The only downside to Poltergeist is that there's two downsides. First of all, it has a chance to miss. Not looking good for track record on the channel. Second drawback, it is a little bit counterplayable if you bring usable items or no items. Because if you bring no item, or if you bring consumable items, you can make sure that you don't have an item by the time I want to come in and Poltergeist it. And then Poltergeist fails to work, which is not something we want to see. Hopefully our opponents bring items for us that we can make, that we can disturb, as the game calls them. Both of those are gonna hurt. It has setup potential. It has Calm Mind, perfect coverage, and Greasiest Orb boosted Shadow Ball, or plus Aura Sphere, or you can couple it with your second Greasiest Orb boosted Stab. There's not a lot in the game. There are some exceptions like Grimmsnarl that can resist your dual stab, or not be hit neutral by a dual stab. But let me just tell you, they're few and far between. And Giratina loves that. Giratina does love that. And it does have a really nice ability for offense as well. An immunity. You can't say no to an immunity when you go to offense, because like a lot of hyper offensive teams are not going to be able to tank a hit. So having an immunity, making sure you take no damage, can be really nice. For example, if you threaten my Deoxys attack with a ground move, specifically ground move, then I can come in and levitate it. Giratina takes no damage, and you have to figure out another way to deal damage, which is pretty cool. So it kind of protects Deoxys attack from ground moves, which is a little bit interesting. Funny enough, though it's not weak. Well, it's weak to ground, weak to damage, so I guess ground is included in that. Yeah, Earthquake will drop a Deoxys attack, so absolutely, it does got some good supportive options as well. Will-O-Wisp will activate boosted Greasiest Orb coupled Hex. Then you got Pain Split for recovery. It's not the best recovery. It's like semi-pseudo recovery, which is okay. Detail, which still hits hard. Greasiest boosted off a 120 stab. It's one of the stronger details in the game, which is really cool. And it switches things out so it can boost versus you and get faster than Deoxys attack, or get strong enough to take down Giratina, which is pretty cool. It also has some good coverage moves in T-Bolt and Earth Power on the special side. It appears I've not listed too much of the physical coverage, but that's totally fine, because 9 out of 10 times you want to use moves that are stab on this thing, because you have the Greasiest Orb. You want to make sure your moves are boosted. So that's pretty much this thing. A behemoth on the special side, a behemoth on the offensive side. If my team is weak offensive, physically defense, we will run both of these guys physical. No worries at all. Vice versa, if they're specially defensive or weak specially. The only thing so far is that they can bring an Assault Vest versus us and cause problems. But hey, that's an item that can be poltergeisted. So kind of happy about that. It can T-Wave, Will-O-Wisp, or D-Bond, or Defog to get rid of hazards as well, which is pretty far. I don't want to defog away potential Deoxys attack spikes if that's ever coming. But hey, defog is more for keeping my Mon safe than for... you know, it doesn't really have that much of a downside getting rid of my own stuff, because I'm going to be spending most of my turns attacking, so it's fine. Next up, we have Big Archaludon, Big Bridge. Here we go. Bulky offense. This thing, coupled with Giratina, does cause a little bit problem typing-wise, because, first of all, you drafted a Steel type that doesn't resist Fairy for Giratina, and you drafted a Dragon type that doesn't resist, or you drafted a second Dragon, which means, or the Steel Dragon combo essentially means that Giratina doesn't have a Fairy resist, and it does mean that you also have a Steel that doesn't resist Dragon. So Fairy and Dragon are going to become more problematic. Luckily, this thing can tear into pure Steel, which will help Giratina a lot defensively, being that Giratina has Levitate as well, being able to switch into super effective ground moves for Archaludon. But, you know, tearing Steel isn't the best typing for Archaludon, so it's a little bit of a turnaway round to get going here. But the stamina ability on this thing and the natural bulk that this thing have on the physical side will help the team a lot to switch into some things. It can also take on things 1v1 due to its virtue of stamina, being able to boost its defense and body pressing stuff, or setting up its special attack through Meteor Beam Power Herb, Electroshot Power Herb, or something of the like. It also gets supportive with Dragon Tail itself, so Giratina doesn't have to run it. It gets Metal Burst to be able to kind of soft counter damage. It has screens if you ever want to go that route, or, you know, the classic Stealth Rock, which puts things into range of the 2 demons above, which is pretty cool. Yeah, and it's weak to, it kind of switches, though not the best neutral coverage defensive-wise for Giratina. Being only weak to fighting and ground, guess what? Switching into Giratina is a perfect switch. It's a perfect 50-50. If I stay in on your fighting and ground, or if I swap the Giratina, because Giratina is immune to both of them, and that's how you play offense, baby. Don't fuck the resist, fuck the neutral hits, we're just going for immunity. We need to get predicts right when you're playing hyper offense. You're not going to get anywhere playing hyper offense if you don't get predicts right. And now it's starting to look more than like bulky offense, I get that, but we're gonna stray away from that pretty quick. You're gonna see. Being able to Terra into any type, however, is also good in the terms of that. Archaludon is kind of like, there's going to be some matchups where the Archaludon Terra type is going to be so solid that though my defensive chart doesn't look the best, it's just the offense is going to be strong. I'm talking Terra fighting body press after stamina boost, Terra electric electro shots, stuff like that. It also is pretty fan of, you can Terra Fairy, for example, and have a dragon immunity, which is pretty strong. You can Terra into like these immune typings. Steel, I still remain the poison immunity as well, so not the worst, not the worst. Still gets coverage on the special and the physical side. So far, all of my mons can go physical or special, but my team is leaning more special as of right now, just because Draco is the highest base power move Giratina gets. Psycho Boost is the higher base power move Deoxys gets, and yeah, this thing has a little bit of a higher special attack stat. So our team is leaning a little bit more special, but offensive wise, I will have no trouble running any of these mons physical at any time, which is pretty strong and solid. To stray away from, to get back to my point earlier about straying away from bulky offense, we're going to go into with Terra Hoblucha, which kind of spoils a later member down the line. But if you paid attention to this video and you noticed a certain move that I talked about earlier, you would have seen that coming anyway. This is an Unburdened Sweeper. The plan is to get rid of its item, boost its speed by 2 times, and then set up a Sword Stance, substitute both or nothing, and go ham. It has a bunch of weaknesses that stagger really poorly with the team, but I don't care, because this thing is all about being faster than everything on the field and doing damage. 92 attack is not the best attack in the game, but I chose Terra Hoblucha because I have not really seen this thing run Terra before. And I wonder why, because I feel like this thing is kind of set to sweep games. Like, people play it to sweep anyway, so having the Terra to your advantage is just huge. And either you have a really solid Steel Dragon, only weak to fighting and ground Archaludon, which Hoblucha at its neutral typing both resists, which can help deciding who you want to Terra, or you just have a stronger or you have a regular Hoblucha with a Terra Archaludon. So it works like both ways. The team is super strong either way so far in terms of offense. But I will admit, our defensive chart looks horrible. Like right now we have like no ice resist, for example, and we have 2 weaknesses to ice. So it's gonna look horrible. But I have faith in that the way I play it will make up for that. I have to play to its offensive potential, because that's how I win my games. I don't win any game sitting on my ass tanking moves. I don't have any switch-ins to things, and that's how I've decided to draft this time. In Ubers, it's pretty much the power level is so high, especially in Gen 9 Ubers as well. The power level is going to be so strong that I just want to kill before I get killed. I'm down to play that Ubers game, draft something strong that can come in and get rid of things, just because like Ubers is already hard enough to draft defensively for, so I feel like it's kind of a lost cause, and the game is kind of bidding me up to play offense anyway, so fuck it, let's do it. So we got the 2 really strong Terra potentials right there. Obviously looking for ways to get rid of my item with Hoblucha, but I can do that with Close Combat and White Herb, which removes the close combat stats. I can do it with normal gem and normal type attack. I can do it with an item that will combo with a later team member down the line. And there's some other options it gets as well. I can do, yeah, I don't know. I can do maybe Focus Sash, letting it live on 1 and then go from there. maybe a citrus, something like that, something that can proc it. Yeah, and it just naturally it's also pretty fast, and it can do some supportive options like taunt and encore, locking things down for my other offensive members, which is pretty good. And I can U-turn on out of there. It also has a pretty good secondary ability in Mole Breaker, which is my favorite ability. Being able to counter stuff like Unaware, things that want to try and go defense and stop my setup against this behemoth of a team, trying to slow it down and stop it up in its tracks. Hawlucha's not going to let that happen. So hopefully we can make the bird wrestle some demons in this draft. Yeah, but anyway, that's Hawlucha. It's pretty set up and win. That's how it runs the 4 same moves every time. Just get recovery, dual stab, maybe Terra Blast with a Terra typing, but yeah, that is Hawlucha. Next up, we have Samurai Hisui. Samurai Hisui is a mon I've been wanting to use for a long time. I've never drafted it in Gen 9 until now, until today. I love it. First of all, I love its design. Samurai is also, regular Samurai was a cool design when it came out in Gen 5, but it just gets overshadowed by the fact that it's horrible. Samurai Hisui comes in and fixes that problem by giving it a badass secondary typing, upgrading its design into like a dark samurai kind of vibes with, you know, the blades and the sharpness ability and all that, which is super cool and super useful because guess what? Now we got the Ceaseless Edge on deck. Every time I hit something, and I say every time I hit, which is gonna be 2 times this season, but every time Ceaseless hits at 90% accuracy, it is sharpness stab boosted, and it sets up hilarious spikes every time I hit, which means my other remaining members can come in and abuse the fact that spikes are up on the field. It will chip Focus Sash down, it will chip Assault Vest down into range, it will chip a lot of stuff on the enemy side into ranges. Spikes is one of the cornerstone pieces of really good offense, and this plays to that in every single way possible, because usually you don't want to stop your offense for passive turns with clicking spikes and not doing damage. Well, Samurai Hisui solves that problem perfectly. There are no immunity to dark type moves. Yes, there can be quad resists even, but worst case, if Ceaseless hits, you can't run any item to stop it. Covert Cloak does not work. I get a Polaris Spike. Any way you see it. There's no ability to make sure that it doesn't go up. Nothing. If Ceaseless hits, a spike is up. So that's really strong for me. It has really good other options as well. And Sacred Sword being able to get through super effective fighting. Like if fighting is super effective and they have like setup boosts. For example, people can't have Orcheladon because I have it. But like Iron Defense, Body Press, Shenanigans, I can get through that on other members. It has Taunt and Encore just as Hawlucha as well, although much slower. It has really good stab priority in Aqua Jet and Sucker Punch. And just like sharpness boosted damage in dual stab and its coverage. And then of course it can get Flip Turn On out of there, which makes it a prime opportunity for it to run Choice Scarf, Assault Vest, Choice Band, something like that. Just to be able to outspeed and do what it wants to do. Set up a layer of spike before it can get killed. Or Assault Vest tank a hit, though very weak, especially defensively. Maybe if I invest with an Assault Vest, it can tank 1 hit. Get up a spike. Seal the deal. Done the deal. It also gets Stab Knockoff, which is not sharpness boosted, to remove items. Yes, it's a little counter-synergetic to Poltergeist. I get it. But if I'm running Special Giratina, for example, Knockoff can start to do damage. And it's still like if I remove an Eviolite from one of the lower tiers that needs it unevolved, I can, for example, just start doing damage on the special side. It can be really useful to do that too. That is all for Samurai Hisui. It does have some other tech options as well that it can use. I will mention one of them. It is Soak. Soak is pretty cool to be able to remove the opponent's typing and just make it water. That can come in and be niche for very tanky, something tanky. Being able to not resist my Ceaseless anymore, for example, and do damage. That's an option. There are some other options as well. Hopefully you get to see them throughout the season. Not going to talk too much about them. Let's move on. Next up is the other Ogerpon. We just came off a draft where we used Ogerpon Water with Terrestrialization allowed. This time we're using Ogerpon Fire and we're not terrestrializing it. Mole Breaker, as I talked about earlier, fantastic ability for offense, being able to ignore your opponent's defensive ability options. Yes, again, the type chart is looking horrible right now, but it doesn't really matter because the reason I drafted Ogerpon is because I need something in the 110 speed range. Something slower than Hawlucha and faster than Samurai. We need something to cover those, and Ogerpon is the start of that solution. It is not the complete solution, but it is the start, or something between Giratina and Havlucha, I should say. not Samurai. Giratina is a little bit faster. But anyway, this thing hits hard with Fire Ivy Cudgel. It has stab options, Wood Hammer to do insane damage, Horn Leech to heal and do damage, Spiky Shield to stall stuff like Weather in Ubers can be pretty solid. It kind of works like as a temporary Rocky Helmet as well, because I can't run Rocky Helmet on this. It is locked into its item, which is the mask that it's holding. So same way as Giratina, it's another item lock member. So its speed is just like, it can't be that amplified, but it is pretty strong still. I can still go for Stab, Trailblaze, and raise my speed by 1, but it's a low base power move, so it won't be doing that much damage. It is a secondary option for spikes, which means that if I don't have any way to run Ceaseless, which I don't see why not, but I can't just choose to go for this option as well. It is also pretty fast for a grass type. 110 is like decently fast, so what I can do is I can also run Sub Leech Seed if I want to be an absolute asshole, or I can just do Taunt and Encore on this as well and U-turn out. So a lot of my members have Taunt and Encore, which, you know, it is counterable by an item, but again, if you bring that item, you're susceptible to Poltergeist again. So it's kind of nice. Either I can be really susceptible with my offensive options by bringing passive moves like Encore and Taunt to lock them into moves that I prefer that they do, taunting them into proccing Archelodon stamina, for example, or encoring them for a turn, encoring them into a move that doesn't do damage, so Deoxys attack can come in for free, which is pretty strong. So both of those have an upside. And then obviously we got a lot of momentum with the flip turn, the U-turn, and the stuff like that. We well, maybe not the most. We have 3 so far, which is decent. Half the team has it so far. But it helps getting those members in, you know what I'm saying? So locking stuff in can also make sure that Giratina doesn't take a ton of damage from a move that I'm scared of. So that is the reason. Again, type chart looks horrible. I don't care. We are moving on. This team is not type chart friendly, so cover your eyes. Next up, we have Ribombee. Ribombee gets a lot of hate. And listen, I get it. Ribombee is not the best. And as a fairy, but look at it this way. For my team, right? I'm relying on immunities. I'm not sitting here with a defensive fairy. It would have helped my cores a lot for bulky offense to have a fairy type that's bulky. To be able to switch into hit, be immune to dragon and coverage moves, predicting that it comes in. Yes. But again, Taunt and Encore can help Ribombee get in. The most important thing here about your offense is that you need to support it. You can't just have straight up head to the wall offense on every single team member. You have to vary your offense. And Ribombee helps with that. Ribombee can do Quiver Dance. Yes, I know it's not the easiest to pull off because it's so frail. I get it. But thankfully, its other team members might be able to help it do that. Second of all, this thing can help its team members again by setting up Sticky Web. And that Sticky Web is huge for this team because I have 2 members who can't run a different item. I have Ogerpon, which is locked into its mask, and I have Giratina, which is locked into its Greasius core, yeah, the item. Which means that if I get Sticky Web up, those team members are they have decent base stat, which means I can kind of look forward to slowing enemy teams down and outspeeding them without relying less on priority like Aqua Jet, Sucker Punch, E-Speed, Shadow Sneak. You know what I'm saying? So Ribombee can help with that. And by the way, if I set up Sticky Web with this thing, they will have to, at some points in the game, if they can't do it right now, they will have to, at some point in the game, try and deal with that Sticky Web while I spend turns setting up my damage, which is huge because this thing gets U-turn, and U-turn is never a bad move to have. It also covers a speed above Havlucha, which is never bad either. It kind of closes the gap between Deoxys attack and the rest of the team a little bit. And then if I don't want to do that, it also has other options. It can switch your root items onto targets to Iron Balls to slow them down, Lagging Tail, it can do that. Or it can try to just steal item after having a Focus Sash removed. So it tanks a hit. It can tank a hit, live on a Focus Sash by something that's faster than it. By all means, not a lot in the game is faster than it. But it can tank a hit, And then it can switch a route and steal an item. Yes, counters energetic to Poltergeist, but then again, that maybe Ribombee can completely shut something down that people don't expect it to. Lastly, it has a third option. It can run screens, which is pretty good for the team. Screens are pretty good. Screens are never bad to have. As of right now, I don't want to use Deoxys attack for screens. Yes, I could see a potential matchup where I bring dual screens like Clay or Chaladon, but I would rather not, right? I would rather not. So Ribombee, you know, it might just help. Screens might just save this team from some damage that would otherwise KO it. Right now, I have to be a little careful about crits, especially like the Urshifus, because obviously crits go through screens. Crits go through our Chaladon stamina boost, and my team is frail as paper as before. So I have to not get crit this season, basically, which is perfect. We're not gonna get crit. Perfect. But yeah, Sticky Web is a real factor, and it is a dragon immunity. As much as people don't like to say that Ribombee can't be used defensively, well, an immunity is an immunity. So go ahead and click your dragon move. I will be switching this thing out. Either I die and get momentum, or I live and I don't take any damage from your dragon move. So it's a win-win in my book. I like it. Yeah. So it's not completely useless. It's not the best either, but it is what it is. I can also see that I've fucked up the stats on this thing, so don't look at the stats, because the bars the numbers are right, but the bars are off. So let's just pretend I did it right. Yeah, cool. All right, Indeedee is up next, and that is the member that was spoiled a little bit earlier. Obviously, Indeedee sets the Psychic Terrain. Really good ability, really bad Pokemon. But that's you know, that's how it is. However, Psychic Terrain makes Deoxys attack specifically 75% times better, because not only do you now get a move that is Psychic Terrain boosted, stab coming off of a 180 special attack stat, and gets boosted in the terrain. That's what you get. You don't have to click Psycho Boost, basically. Psycho Boost does do more damage than Expanding Force, because Psychic Terrain only boosts by 50%, not 2 times, not 100%. So Psycho Boost still does a little more, but you don't have to deal with the special attack drop, which would otherwise make Deoxys attack pretty passive, because either it just straight up dies and can't do enough damage, or it straight up just dies and can't do enough damage. So now we can click Expanding Force and lose to people bringing Assault Vest instead, which I much prefer. Because at least there's some counterplay there. Deoxys attack can still run. It can still run physical. So I can bring mixed Expanding Force if I want to. And there's also the fact that, again, if people bring Assault Vest, that means they have 4 attacks. That means they can't boost past my Chaladon stamina boost, which helps me out. Or maybe they don't get through me because Ribombee set screens earlier, which I like. But the main thing that not only is it boosted damage that Deoxys attack gets, of course it gets safety as well, because priority on grounded targets does not work in Psychic Terrain. Yes, Giratina and Hawlucha can still be outplayed by priority, but Deoxys attack cannot, which is super huge. Because one of the main ways you get to Deoxys attack is you use a priority move to go before it, to beat its fast base speed. Because it can't live any move, so why not use priority to get to it before it can move and kill it before it does real good damage. Psychic Terrain stops that completely in its tracks, 100%. There's no doesn't stop this specific +1 priority move, or it doesn't stop that one. No, it stops them all for Deoxys attack, which is pretty cool. So you have to deal with the terrain being up. Yes, it means I have to bring Indeedee as one of my 6. But again, Indeedee gets its Expanding Force itself. So itself can also be a secondary Psychic type to do damage and chip things down for Deoxys attack coming in later. It's a pretty good Scarfer. It can set up screens as well. It can set up itself with Calm Mind. It has some pretty good tech options in Gravity, Power Split, Skill Swap. I can also Skill Swap, which is pretty cool. So if there is some way that people want to counter the terrain by, you know, removing my ability, bringing their own terrain ability, bringing on their terrain move, something like that, I can Skill Swap Psychic Surge over to them and set the terrain back up, which is pretty cool. yeah, I can psych up to copy stats, imprison if they want to imprison expanding force. If I'm faster than them, I can imprison expanding force before they do, and they can't lock this out of expanding force. It has healing wish, which is really cool for stuff like Terra Archaludon and Giratina specifically. Yes, it works for Deoxys attack as well because it comes in before the heal comes in before the hazards, so that is also pretty cool. Or if Havlucha has been chipped down and I need it healthy, I can do that. Or if I need spikes back up, I can heal back up Samurott. So healing wish is also a really good offensive option for this team, being able to use my health on bulky members like Giratina or Archaludon in theory, because in theory Havlucha and Deoxys attack dies to one attack. So we're going to be talking about the bulky members. There are situations where they don't, so I get the heal on them and can use them again. But say Giratina tanks a super effective hit, it does a bajillion damage. It does like 70-80%, but I live and kill it. Use Giratina for that mon and kill it. Go 1-for-1. Heal it back up with this while setting up the psychic terrain. So now Giratina can kill another member and then die, and then have Deoxys attack coming to do the work while psychic terrain is still up, which is super cool. Super cool. It also gets Encore, so it can also lock things in to help the team. Support. Once you got the pure damage, you need support. And although I want to go hyper offense with every single member that I have in some way, sort of fashion, I'm too pussy and I can't. So we're not. We're going to be bringing Tentacruel as the fairy resist that we missed out on earlier by the virtue of having Archaludon. Yes, it's not that Archaludon can't take fairy type attacks because they are neutral, right? And I do have a resistant Ogerpon as well if they're not too heavy fairy type attacks. But let's be honest, they're going to die anyway. So what I want here is I want to remove my need for Terra stealing or Terra poisoning Archaludon by having a fairy resist somewhere else on the team, so that Archaludon is loosened up a little bit and you run other Terra types more efficiently. And this is the way of doing so. Not only does this get rapid spin for the team, which is much better than defog, which means I can keep spikes on my side of the field without removing every hazard on the field. This thing also absorbs T-spikes, which my team previously was not that fond of. A lot of grounded members, Havlucha can Terra into being grounded. Deoxys attack doesn't care because it's dead anyway. Archaludon, if it tears away from steel typing, getting that poisoned is pretty bad. Samurott doesn't like it, Ogerpon doesn't like it, Rabamba doesn't like it, and Didi doesn't like it. So now we can come in and absorb those and have rapid spin for every other kind of hazard. You also have to remember, if people set Sticky Web up against me, that is the same as me, like that is even worse than me not, like, there is setting up webs against them, really good. Not setting up webs at all, we're fine. Me getting set up web on is pretty bad. Yes, I have flying members, like I have Havlucha and Giratina, I get it. But Deoxys attack does not like being speed dropped. I tell you what, it hates being speed dropped, because if it somehow lives in attack like Icy Wind, it dies from Kyurem Icy Wind, by the way. But if it somehow lives an Electro Web or a String Shot or a Scary Face, it probably does. Scary Face probably does 55% of that thing. But if it somehow lives in attack and gets speed drop, it is still Jobber for it because it can't go first to get off damage. So we want to remove that. It also is knockoff anti-poltergeist. I get it, but it's fine. We need items gone anyway. I may remove an Assault Vest that can grant us a KO later. It is Haze to stop setup, Mirror Coat to get surprise KOs, 100% accurate, Toxics to really chip down the super tanky stall teams that are going to be coming up, which is like maybe 2 coaches in the league have something like stall similar, like Raging Cores and stuff like that. We want to shut that down. We can do that with 100% accurate Toxic. We can set up Toxic Spikes ourselves. If the opponent team is weak, we can chip them down into our demons, or we can just flip. Flip is never bad. We can just flip. So that's what you're going to be doing, Whiskey. You're going to be flipping the Whiskey. So that's how we do it around here. So also remember to answer the question of the day. I'm excited for using this team, and I want you guys to tell me what you think. We have one last member though at 4 points, and that's the GOAT himself, the other fairy resist, an actual steel type Bastion with Terra for 4. I think that's a good price for 4. This is kind of like Tentacruel is the special defense, Bastion is the physical defense. It is another rocker that I can have without having to spend a move slot on our Chaldodon. I can bring this if my team is pretty fairy weak. I can bring this. If their Uber is like a fairy type, for example, I can bring this. It can get surprise KOs with Metal Burst counter. It can slow things down by virtue of like Bulldoze or stuff like that. Foul Play does do really decent damage in Ubers because I'm not using Bastiodon's 52 attack. I'm using their attack stat and the Dark type move with base 95 power. Body Press is going to start hurting naturally with Terra Fighting, or after an Iron Defense, or all three, or a Curse. It's going to start doing damage. Bastiodon is heavy. I don't know if you can tell. I might be talking to my blind audience here, but as you can see, this guy is not very light, so Heavy Slam is going to do considerable damage. I can roar stuff out so they can't set up, and if they're immune to Bulldoze, I can Rock Tomb them as well, lower their speed, which is essentially, if they stay in, it's the same as Sticky Webs. I can taunt things, I can reflect, or I can hit things for quad. That's the only way I'm going to be doing damage. I can hit Rayquaza with Ice Beam. I can hit Caesar with Flamethrower. You know what I'm saying? Like those kind of situations are where I can use those kinds of moves. So I'm not going to be doing damage outside of stab or quad coverage moves, or like moves that are based on, you know, stuff like Body Press based on my defense stat, or Foul Play based on their attack stat. You know, it has to be some kind of way to work around my bad stats. But outside of that, Bastiodon is here. Rookie, welcome to the squad. You're going to be setting up rocks, buddy. It also have some fun ability stuff. So there it is. That's my team for UPA season whatever. I hope you're going to look forward to my battles and make sure to cheer me on. And I'll be seeing you guys in the battle. So this has been your boy Soulblaze. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Tell me who you think is the favorite team member of your on this team right here. And let me know. Go follow all the wonderful other people in the UPA as well. And let's have a fun season. That's been it. Take care of yourself, take care of your families, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.